Okay, so when I was 9, my grandpa and I wanted to get my brother from the train station, and I was the only one who wanted to go, so I did. Then in the middle of the car ride, my grandpa starts asking me if I have my cherries yet, and I say no, and he tells me that when I get them I should show him, so I thought nothing of it. Then later that week my grandpa tried to teach me how to ride a boat and his pee-pee started showing and I started to cry. My mom was confused, but she didn't think that it was a sign. Now I am convinced he is a pedo and I'm Sparkles. Terrified Sparkles of him, and I try to avoid all contact with him. This week I told my parents and they said they had suspected it and said he was a psycho. Anonymous. I used to go to this camp when I was 10 years old with this girl who was my friend, and we would always play this game called Jail, where she would pretend to be a nasty pervert and would start touching me. There were like 5 older people around us and they never told her that it wasn't okay to do. They would just watch us like we were crazy and they were never concerned about what she was doing, and I really didn't know that was a bad thing at that time. I never went back there again because they weren't watching over the kids properly, and the 15-year-old girl that was supposed to watch over us wasn't even watching us, and she was one of the 5 people in that room where I was in, and the place ended up being closed down from Anonymous. One time I was lying in my bed and my sister was in the bathroom and I heard my mom moaning. Then I heard her say my dad's name and call him daddy. I was traumatized and my sister was stuck in the restroom and my brother was asleep. Me and my sister were texting the whole time, and when they were done I heard their dresser open. To this day I still don't go in their room from Anonymous.
One time I was in class watching hentai when the teacher introduced the new bird girl. Her name was Wendy Woodpeck. She flew across the room and sat next to me and began munching on sunflower seeds while squawking. Our teacher announced our field trip to a bird sanctuary and Wendy Woodpeck started flapping her arms while pushing out an egg. We were all getting on the bus and Wendy Woodpeck said she didn't need to get in and that she can just fly there. So she chased the bus with her arms open for the whole 30-minute ride. We arrived and Wendy Woodpeck violently flapped in behind us out of breath and she began squawking thirsty, 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 while pecking at a water tank. The tour guide arrived and he was showing us around the cockatoo pen and explaining why they hump trees. And that's when Wendy Woodpeck went missing. Our teacher told us to split up to try and find her, and that's when I heard an unsettling noise. We rushed over to the parrot pen and that's where we saw Wendy Woodpeck naked on the floor with feathers glued all over her body, a bottle of glue in her hand, and a cage next to her.
One time when I was in middle school I had a boyfriend named Kevin. We were dating for a few months and rumors started going around about us that we f***ed. Obviously they weren't true because we were literally 13. The rumors got worse to the point where a few teachers heard about it and dragged us to our classmates behind our backs. Kevin broke up with me because of how bad the rumors got and I was devastated. I came home crying and my older sister Erica asked me what was wrong and I told her the whole story. She gave me some advice and said that I should confront the students and teachers who spread the rumors, and if that doesn't work she'll bring out the big guns. I wasn't too sure what she meant by the big guns, but knowing her she has something good planned. I just hope we don't get arrested. Anyways, the next day at school I was in English class when my teacher Mrs. Beans made a subtle joke hinting at me and my ex-boyfriend. That's when I had enough of this shit and pressed that bitch. I said, girl, if you don't stop disclosing a 13-year-old's private information while contributing to false rumors like the unprofessional teacher you are, you will be having a nice long talk with my family's hot DILF lawyer. Now go worry about your own kids who think they're the shit. And when I tell you that set her off, I really mean that shit. She kicked me out and sent me to the office and I got after school detention. While I was in detention I texted my sister and told her what happened, and while the old ass dinosaur age detention supervisor was gone she came to the window from the high school and snuck me out. On the way home we went to our local Walmart to discuss the plan and bought laxatives. While we were there we met a drug dealer named Dan who overheard our conversation and gave us a pill. He said to combine it with the laxative powder and it'll make the best revenge ever. My sister and I were like okay, because to be honest we didn't give a fuck what would happen to that fat bitch Mrs. Beans. The next day at school before classes started me and Erica snuck into Mrs. Beans' classroom and put the laxative powder in her coffee and we added the pill Dan gave us and we sprinted out. Then first period started and I went to Mrs. Beans' class and we were about to work on our essays until we heard a loud fart. I was like bitch yes, the plan is working, so I got my phone out and started recording. Then Mrs. Beans let out the most powerful yet passionate fart anyone has ever heard, and next thing you know there was brown fireworks everywhere. Turns out the pill Dan gave us causes literal explosive diarrhea. Everyone started screaming and running out the room and then the fire alarm went off and we had a fire drill. The whole fire department came to the school and put out the fire that was caused by the explosive laxatives. The police did an investigation and now we're on trial. When I was in 3rd grade I had a really shitty teacher who for some reason hated my guts. It was at the end of the day and I had to take a massive shit, so I asked to go to the bathroom and she said no, so like 5 minutes later I asked again in a really snarky attitude and she said no again, and at this point I was getting upset. I asked her a third time and she said no again, so I shit myself and I started crying cause I thought I was gonna get yelled at by my parents because this wasn't the first time I shat myself. Turns out they weren't mad and they were furious at the teacher and wanted to talk to the principal about it. My principal didn't do shit because she was not the best either and also hated me. 1 year later I was diagnosed with a medical disorder that either prevented me from shitting and or holding my shit in from anonymous.
My neighbor's son Michael came out gay secretly, but his parents find out about it. They beat him up and throw him out of the house. Me and my siblings asked our parents if it was okay for us to let Michael to live with us. Luckily they said yes. Michael's plan was to stay until he finished his high school and get a job. But one day Michael's parents finds out that Michael being living with us. Michael's dads went and bought a gun, came to our house. He demanded to take Michael back or he will shoot us. My parents and Michael's parents were fighting like wild animals. We called the police. Michael's parents were sentenced to prison for 15 years in prison. After that Michael and my older brother Ethan started dating.
One time I was sitting in class and this boy was itching his back and I guess the itch had other plans, so it took his hand down his pants and he started to scratch the hell out of his booty hole, and after that he sniffed it and looked around to see if anyone was looking, so I turned my head really quick, but then later he handed out papers with that same hand from Anonymous. Recently I have been sneaky with this boy who we'll call Jay. Me and Jay had problems back in 6th grade, but recently we have been talking again and we've been doing sexual things, but it's weird because I have a boyfriend and he has a girlfriend, and in 6th period me and Jay touch up on each other and I jerk him in class, and I just don't know how to tell Jay I want to stop all of this. Alright bitches, so this shit better be anonymous because the police told me I'm not allowed to tell anyone. In 7th grade I got a DM on Instagram from a random person saying they were going to shoot up my middle school. I live in Florida, so even if it was a joke I had to tell a teacher. I texted my science teacher and sent her the screenshots and she kept texting me saying there would be dead bodies everywhere. Anyway, she called the principal and the principal called me to call the police station. We called the police and gave our statements and I went to bed thinking it would be alright. At 2 a.m. in the fucking morning my mother starts banging on the door that a literal fucking detective is coming over. I talked to her and she was chill, but then they talked about having to possibly go through my phone to get my messages and I acted like that was fine, but oh hell no, I did some unholy things and had pictures of it, so please keep your sticky fingers away from my phone. I don't wanna go to juv.
When I was in 7th grade, I met this girl in my bus and her name was Lexi. Well, me and Lexi got really close. My middle school was divided into 3 different schools, so me and Lexi went to the same school but a different section of our school, and we also took the same bus. Anyways, one day when I was walking to class through one of the schools, I saw this cute-ass guy and I asked her about him cause she went to school with him, and she told me that it was one of her friends. And that if I wanted her to mention me to him, well of course I want you to mention me to him, bitch, I think he's cute. Well, he sent me a little note telling me I was cute or whatever, and then we kept sending notes to each other. But one day as I was walking through one of the schools to get to my class, I saw him with a group of friends and they all started laughing at me. I got really embarrassed and didn't know what was happening, so I went to see Lexi to ask her why he was laughing at me, since she was the one passing our notes back and forth, and that's when I found out that that bitch was actually the one pretending to be him and was making fun of me at her school. I have not been the same since. When I was like 6 years old, me and my family went to this ice cream shop. I had to fart really bad, so I farted. But it turns out it wasn't a fart, it was a big fat shard and my pants were full of juicy poop. I didn't know what to do, so I took it out of my pants and smeared it all over the window. I said it was chocolate and the worker lady had to clean it up with a towel.
In 2nd grade I needed to crap so bad. The bathroom passes were both taken, so I decided to fart to see if that would make me feel better. I was sitting on the carpet in my assigned spot listening to my teacher who hates fart noises, and after about 5 minutes I finally ripped one and it was so loud. I swear besh it went on for 1 whole minute. I blamed it on the person in front of me who turned out to be a good friend later in life. The only person I told was my brother's best friend's brother who sat right next to me. I paid him $5 not to tell anyone and it worked for like a year. I did end up shatting my pants that day, but I do be feeling better though. I'm glad you feel better, lol. Also thank you for your submission. One time, when I was 12, I went to one of my friends' house. She had an older brother, and he went out to a party that night. When me and my friend were sleeping, I felt somebody tap my leg in the middle of the night. It was her older brother telling me to go in his room. I did. We started making out. And long story short, we started doing the dirty. It was my first time too. The next day, I went back home and started complaining about how my pee burned. My mom took me to the doctor, and the doc asked me if I was sexually active. My mom got mad. BC, she thought the doc was crazy for asking a 12-year-old that. Long story short, I had a urinary tract infection, and to this day my mom says I shouldn't use bath bombs because that's what she thinks caused it.
Hey, so this is my story. One time I went to my god sister's house with my cousin and we were all 14. We went upstairs to my god sister's room and she wanted to play truth or dare, so we did. It was going fine until she gave me a dare and it was to make out with her, and I didn't want to sound like a pussy, so I did. Then it was my cousin's turn and she dared me to make out with her, and I did cause I didn't want to seem like a pussy. Then that kept going on and I started to not be scared and actually like it. Then my god sister got up and locked the door and put the TV on so no one can hear us. Then she asked if we know what sex is and what a threesome was. We said yes cause we were 14, and I think every 14-year-old knows about that and watched porn. My god sister told us to take off all our clothes and lay on the bed, so me and my cousin did. We were all naked and my god sister sat on top of me and we started to make out while my cousin went to my kitty cat and started to play with it. Then we all did the deed. After that we all stayed in her bed naked cuddling until this day. Every time we're with each other, if it's all of us or just 2 of us, we always do the deed.